going. I don't know, has anybody gone and looked at the recordings for these programs on our YouTube channel?
No.
I do. I do.
I know you do, yeah.
I have done it. I haven't done it recently, but I saw the first ones that we had.
Yeah, I'll get the link and put it in the chat room here so you can.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that we could access them, so that's great. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, yes, we have our own YouTube channel, ACIM Gather, for A Course in Miracles. And so copy. I'll come and put it into the chat here.
Okay, she's gonna restart her computer.
Oh, okay. All righty.
Okay.
Well, we will move along.
Okay.
She can
Go
catch
ahead.
up.
We can start now.
All right. So there's the link I just put in the chat for our YouTube station. And so, yeah, you can go there and you know, be able to access them and listen to the things we talked about. And I think it's really
frozen.
Pardon me?
The picture is frozen here. I don't know.
Your picture is frozen?
Okay, maybe. Yeah, mine is frozen, but
no, you're just very still. You're moving. Okay. All right, guys. Well, as usual, we're going through the manual for teachers, and we're in section 5, and we just have spent the last couple of weeks really getting into you know, what it means to be a teacher of God. So, Dove, you had your hand up?
No, I'm back.
Oh, you're just stretching. Okay. Okay. So, so let me go and find. What did I do here? Where did I put my screen? Not there. Oh, here we go. No. What did I do with the, I'm asking myself. Oh, I know what I did. I covered it up with this other thing. That's what. There we go. Now it's there. Learning every day. Something new. Okay, there we go. All right, can y'all see that?
Yes.
All right. So we are in the Manual for Teachers, section 5. And we are, I don't know if it's a section or chapter, maybe. I don't know what you call these things, but we're in one called How is Healing Accomplished? And so we've just been talking about our misperceptions about what sickness and healing is, and learning really to hear what Jesus has to say about it. But now we're in the function of the teacher of God. And I understand, and there's a lot of people that maybe say, I don't want to be a teacher, or I'm not a teacher, you know, I just want to, you know, study and be a student. But, you know, Jesus tells us throughout the course that we are his teachers. We're the ones he chose to teach his course. So whether we do it in as an actual formal teacher or not, that doesn't matter. It's just how we live our lives that really give people the understanding of what the Course in Miracles actually does for us. And when they see, you know, we're happy, we're joyful, we're kind, you know, whatever, you know, attributes you want to give, you know, they recognize something's different, and they feel the love of God from us. And that doesn't mean we have to go and tell them, oh, you know about A Course in Miracles and this is the greatest thing. We don't have to do that, because it's not necessary. It's really only necessary for me to know the A Course in Miracles, and to share it with my brother in whatever way I can. So when he's talking about the function of the teacher of God, of course, we're in the Manual for Teachers. So, you know, we have to understand that we are both teachers and learners, students and learners at the same time. So maybe we can just go ahead and read the first paragraph and talk about it. And who would like to read?
Read.
Good, thank you, Dee.
The function of the teacher of God. If the If the patient must change his mind in order to be healed, what does the teacher of God do? Can he change the patient's mind for him? Certainly not. For those already willing to change their minds, he has no function except to rejoice with them, for they have become teachers of God with him. He has, however, a more specific function for those who do not understand what healing is. These patients do not realize they have chosen sickness. On the contrary, they believe that sickness has chosen them. Nor are they open-minded on this point. The body tells them what to do, and they obey. They have no idea how insane this concept is. If they even suspected it, they would be healed. Yet they suspect nothing. To them, the separation is quite real. So the problem is when we believe that the sickness is in the body and not of the mind. And in actuality, the body is a prisoner of the mind, not the other way around, of our consciousness.
Excuse me.
That's what I get from this paragraph.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything that, yeah, there, you know, how are we dealing with other people who appear to be sick? And he says, well, we can't change their mind for them. And so, you know, we have this work to do to change our own mind. And, you know, that may do something about the sickness of the world, because what we're experiencing is a projection of our own thinking. So healing our own mind would essentially heal others as well, just because our minds are joined. So we don't have to go around and say, you know, the only way you can be healed is to accept the atonement for yourself to a person who's sick. We can say, you know, just bless them in our mind and heal our own mind and our own thinking about them. And, you know, then, you know, does healing occur from that? I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts about this paragraph?
When I talk to people, I tell them that there comes a point where they make a decision, where they're just done. Like in the previous section where it said, I have no more use for this. And that we keep whittling away the ego fears and the hurts and the stories and all that. And then at some point it all comes together, and it's like the final puzzle piece where they just say, I'm done. I'm done with whatever illness of the body that they had or whatever issue they had. And then everything comes together.
So yeah, so you've seen that happen, and you've seen that occur in your experience. I think that I've seen that occur in my experience, at least with my own body. I haven't really worked with other people and seen them to be healed. But where he says that these patients do not realize they have chosen sickness. Now, on the contrary, they believe that sickness has chosen them, nor are they open-minded on this point. And I think we do tend to, when we talk to people about, you know, why they're sick, a lot of times people in the spiritual community will say, well, it's because of something you did in your life, or because of the way you think, or, you know, it's a reflection of your, you know, they blame the patient for the sickness, and you know, by saying you're responsible for your sickness, seems like a really mean thing to say to somebody. And it is a really mean thing to say to somebody if you think that they are, if you are insinuating that they're doing that on a conscious level. But it's not happening on a conscious level in anybody's mind. What we're seeing as sickness in our body is coming from an unconscious thought system that is that we don't even know exists. We don't even understand that it's happening. So when he says the body tells them what to do and they obey, but they have no idea how insane this concept is. If they even suspected it, they would be healed. So the ego, the body, is telling you how to be. You know, you should be sick. You worked in that factory. You should have cancer. You grew up eating the wrong food. You should be diabetic, or we think that the body has its own mind. But if we recognize that the body doesn't have its own mind, that we really are the master of our own being, then we would be healed. But we think we're helpless. You know, there's nothing I can do. And I love the way that he says that, yet they suspect nothing. To them, the separation is quite real. So you'd be healed if you just even have the idea that none of this was real. This was not true. But until you know that, you're going to think it is. Any thoughts?
I have, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. In my case, for example, my husband, he's a smoker, and sometimes he gets short of breath, and he knows, that he's had bronchitis, things like that in the past, and he knows it is something that's not good for his health. I mean, that's what, according to the world definitions of things. And he says, I know it's not good for me, but I want it. It's also a choice that even though I could maybe try to master it, which he did a couple of times, but he always went back to it again. And finally, which is better to make peace with it and just say, okay, I like it, I'm not going to quit, which is I think it's still a better position to be. At least you have more peace about it. But yeah, it is something that I can only look at and not interfere with, because like you said, also, we don't know everything and what keeps people where they are. So it's, yeah. So I guess in that case, the function of the teacher of God is just to see him as healed and whole and complete. Even if it's not quite, a realization yet, but just to have that vision and just continue to entertain that and, and be at peace myself with whatever happens with him. So that's what I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with that. And I think, because there are many people who smoke for their entire lifetime and never have a sickness from it. And there are other people who don't smoke at all and have a sickness. I have COPD, which is something that smokers get, but I don't smoke. So, where did that come from? It's, you don't know. So you can't say for sure any of it. You just have to be open to let people be as they are. Anybody else have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I find that too, that the
Okay.
Hi, Grace.
Grace, do you want to try to talk? You sound a little garbly, but speak up.
I wanted to say something, but I can say it after our sister. She started speaking.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sure.
So
yeah, I
Frank,
can speak after her.
Kathleen, if you want to go ahead. And you know what, Grace? Kathleen speaks French, I believe. So maybe if you run out of words, she might be able to help you. Kathleen, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
I sort of lost it. I think what I wanted to say is, oh shit. Okay, sometimes I think we want to, like, we're talking like get rid of smoking or try to heal the sickness. But the problem is to heal the sickness is the thought from that mind, because if you ask healing for, let's say I have lung cancer, I'm not free from sickness. I'm still keeping this mind. Because you understand what I'm saying? It is the mind that is the problem, and not the problem itself. I don't know if I'm clear on what I want to say. Sometimes we want to fix one problem, then a problem. That's why it never ends, because the problem is the maker of the problem that we got to get rid of, to be free of it after, because it's not, so it's endless. If we don't do that, it never ends. So it's the maker of the problem we have to get rid of. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's why Jesus says if you even suspected that that was the case, you would be healed. So Grace, did you want to go on and speak?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to what you said. That is very true, that we have to remember that none of this is happening at the conscious level, because sometimes I try to forget that the body is not what makes the sickness. The body is not what makes any decision. That the body is, as the Course said, my body is a wholly neutral thing. So I have to remember sometimes to know that the body is just a tool, and it is an instrument that the decision maker use as how do you call it, like a marionette, like a doll, from the thought system it is listening to. And the decision maker, when he join with the ego, it makes an instrument, the body, that has what we call sickness. But it's true that it's really not at the level where it is the body doing anything. The body is really a wholly neutral thing. It is really just an instrument that we will lay down when all this craziness or all this dream, or when the use of the body is not necessary. But it's true that to blame a body for a sickness is also very insane than believing that the body is making its sickness. The body is making nothing. The body is taking no decision. The body is not thinking. The body is not seeing. The body is nothing. It is a whole neutral thing. It is just an instrument, and it reflects what the decision maker is doing with that instrument. If it is listening to the ego thought system, or it is listening to the voice for love. That's what I just wanted to add, to remind myself that the body is not the doer. The body is done to by the decision maker with the voice it is listening to. I don't know if it makes sense with my bad English, but this is what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Grace. That made perfect sense. And I agree completely with you. Does anybody else have any thoughts about this?
I just want to remind everyone that all of this is based on, remember, this is a three-part thing. How is healing accomplished? And the first part is you can't be healed unless you want to know why you want to be sick. And the purpose of sickness is I want to deny my father the joy of his creation. So I'm really denying myself. So it doesn't really matter whether a person smokes or they don't smoke. The sickness is brought on by my own denial of myself. I'm in denial of myself. That's what brings on the sickness. That's why he says at the beginning, you can't be healed unless you want to know why you want to be sick.
So that's the first part, right?
Yeah, that's part one. That's part one. It's a three-part section, and don't go beyond part one unless you're very clear. Exactly as Grace just said, I'm doing it to myself. No self-respecting ego will admit that. But if you go to responsibility for sight, page 448 of the text, it says everything that seems to happen, I have asked for, and I have received exactly as I have asked. And then he says, deceive yourself no longer that you're helpless, that you're sick in face of what's happening to you. Acknowledge that you have been mistaken, and all effects of your mistakes will disappear.
So yeah, so it kind of is like the forgiveness. You first you bring it. You have to understand why you're doing it. Why this thing is happening. Why do I want this thing to be happening? And then you ask the Holy Spirit to help you shift your perception of yourself and the world. And when your perception has been shifted, then you see how you really are, and so the actual then going forth and living as a teacher of God and living it as an example for the world, that just comes about naturally once your perception has been shifted. But as long as you have the same perception that the body is your reality and the life you're living is your real life, then you're going to continue to be confused about who you are, and you're going to continue to be sick. So the changing of the mind, which is what Jesus is talking about, is the changing of my mind, because I can't change your mind. There's nothing I can do to change the way anybody else thinks. So the only one thing I can work with is myself. And so, that's comforting in a lot of ways, because I'm not responsible for you. That makes me a lot more comfortable, because I don't have to worry about anybody else, what they do. I don't have to proselytize or, make them understand anything. I can just change my own mind and it will shift the world. Anything else on paragraph 1 that anyone would like to share?
I think an important point is purpose. The first section talked about the purpose of sickness, and the purpose of the body is to separate. And so when we give the purpose of the body to the Holy Spirit for its purpose, then the body becomes healed or becomes a totally neutral thing. And there's a really nice line in chapter 25 in the introduction that says, his purpose folds the body in his light and fills it with the holiness that shines from him. So we can't be sick, or we can't perceive the body as sick when it's under the Holy Spirit's purpose.
That's a really good point, Lori. That's a really good point. And so I guess that means we just have to let him be in charge, as our final lessons tell us. All right. Does anybody want to read paragraph 2?
I'll read it. To them, God's teachers come to represent another choice which they had forgotten. The simple presence of a teacher of God is a reminder. His thoughts ask for the right to question what the patient has accepted as true. As God's messengers, his teachers are the symbols of salvation. They ask the patient for forgiveness for God's Son in his own name. They stand for the alternative. With God's word in their minds, they come in benediction, not to heal the sick, but to remind them of the remedy God has already given them. It is not their hands that heal. It is not their voice that speaks the word of God. They merely give what has been given them. Very gently they call to their brothers to turn away from death. Behold, you Son of God, what life can offer you. Would you choose sickness in place of this? Yeah. And still, what I get from that is that if you're a real teacher of God and the person says yes, and that's what they choose, that you would be just fine with it and totally accepting, because you would not be in your small m mind, but you would be, which I'm not there, but I realize that if I'm in the mind of God, which is the Spirit's place, like she was saying before, then it wouldn't bother me, whatever the choice is.
It's just such a beautiful thought. I mean, imagine really what I think he's describing here is us in a shining Christ being, and that people will be more comfortable just because we're here. That they'll feel a blessing from us when they come in contact with us. They'll know that we represent the Christ, whether they know it intellectually or not, to have the feeling from us of being loved and respected as the holy children of God. It just, I think he's saying a description of what God's teachers are really like. And it's just a way for us to be, and to, I can feel myself in that state. And I've known myself in that state so many times that I know it's like a rising up inside of me of spirit that is speaking to, like, or from a grown-up place, a place where I'm not making choices based on the ego's ideas and thoughts about things, but really listening to the Holy Spirit and communing from that state. That's a feeling that I get when I read this paragraph. It just makes me feel this rise up of beauty and be able to have people, to be able to say to people, behold, you Son of God, what life can offer you. Would you choose sickness in place of this? To be so elevated in my person that people would want to, just like they did with Jesus. And I'm not, saying, oh, I can be like Jesus, but I can. Obviously, he's saying that's the aspiration and the goal, is to be like that. And what we have to do to recognize that and experience that. I think that's what we're learning from this course, Does anybody have any thoughts about that, or am I way off, way off base here?
I just want to say that I am very touched by that passage that says, I'm reading it in French, so but I think it says like they're taught us for the right to question what the passion has accepted for real. Is it the correct translation?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So and I find it very powerful, because when the teacher of God is someone who is aligned with the thought of God. So the thought of God, by the present, the thought of God is like is realigning, is inviting the thought of the sick person to choose differently. Like Jesus said, my brother, choose again. And that sentence is very powerful. It's like they taught us for the right to question what the passion has accepted to for real. Yeah, that's it. It was like, wow. Yeah.
I'm saying thank you, Grace. That is really beautiful. Yeah, I think that was a correct translation. Anybody else have any thoughts about this?
Hi there. I would just like to say the first sentence, to them, God's teachers come to represent another choice, which they had forgotten. And that it reminds me that when we stand in our own peace, that is extended out. God's love is extended out from us. And like you said, Lynn, you don't have to tell people, oh, go read A Course in Miracles. But just by being in our own peace and in our right-mindedness and being able to extend God's love out, people can feel that. They can know, they can feel it, whether they're in peace or not. And that sometimes, or maybe all the time, that is a healing balm for people that that are having problems understanding that on their own. And that gives them the opportunity to see the other choice, to see another way, and to heal their own minds just by having us be in our peace and in their presence and extending God's love out to them. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful way of expressing that. And I mean, it just really is, gosh, and imagine how that feels if you don't feel that already. It is an amazing, amazing thing. Anybody else have any thoughts about this? Have you
That was
experienced
very well
it?
said, Amy. Thank you.
Yeah, beautifully said. All right. Anybody, any other thoughts on paragraph 2 before we move on? Does anybody want to read paragraph 3?
I can read in French.
Okay, sure.
You read it. We have it in English. We can read along with you.
Yes.
And some others may understand what you're saying. So
Very good.
Okay. Paragraphe 3. Pas une fois, les enseignants avancés de Dieu ne considèrent les formes de maladie dans lesquelles leurs frères croient. Le faire serait oublier qu'elles ont toutes le même but et qu'elles ne sont donc pas réellement différentes. Ils cherchent la voix de Dieu dans ce frère qui voudrait se tromper au point de croire que le Fils de Dieu peut souffrir. Il lui rappelle qu'il ne s'est pas fait lui-même et qu'il doit rester tel que Dieu l'a créé. Ils reconnaissent que les illusions ne peuvent pas avoir d'effet. La vérité dans leur esprit va vers la vérité dans l'esprit de leurs frères, de sorte que les illusions ne sont pas renforcées. Ainsi, elles sont portées à la vérité. Ce n'est pas la vérité qui leur est portée. Ainsi, elles sont dissipées, non pas par la volonté d'un autre, mais par l'union de la seule volonté avec elle-même. Voilà la fonction des enseignants de Dieu. Ne voir aucune volonté séparée de la leur, ni la leur séparée de celle de Dieu. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Grace.
You all get this?
Yeah. Who understood this now? That's beautiful. That is so pretty and so beautiful to hear in that language. And I kind of was following around, but it seemed like a lot more words than what it is in English. Maybe to describe it better. So I'll read in English also, and then we can talk. So not once do the advanced teachers of God consider the forms of sickness in which their brother believes. To do this is to forget that all of them have the same purpose and therefore are not really different. They seek for God's voice in this brother, who would so deceive himself as to believe God's Son can suffer. And they remind him that he did not make himself and must remain as God created him. They recognize illusions can have no effect. The truth in their minds reaches out to the truth in the minds of their brothers, so that illusions are not reinforced. They are thus brought to truth. Truth is not brought to them. So they are dispelled, not by the will of another, but by the union of the one will with itself. And this is the function of God's teachers, to see no will as separate from their own, nor theirs as separate from God's. So beautiful, beautiful. So what I hear Jesus saying to us here is that that we don't have to, we shouldn't be thinking about any form of sickness that we are seeing or hearing about. That, whether it's COVID or cancer or mental illness or, anger or, any kind of sickness, we should not be even thinking about that when we're considering our brothers or being with our brothers, because our purpose is always the same. So our purpose is not to be sick or to have difficulty or anything. Our purpose is to do God's will. So once I recognize that your purpose and my purpose are the same, that what we're here for is the same thing, then I'm going to have to look at you as being the same thing as me. And if I see you as me, I see you as I am, then I'm going to be listening for God's voice from you. I'm going to be listening for God's voice from you, and I'm not going to hear anything else, because that's my will, to only see God and only hear God and only know God. That's my will. And once I recognize that, you know, the things that I think are happening couldn't possibly be happening, the illness, the death, the, you know, whatever, it couldn't possibly really be happening, then I know the truth about you, and the truth about me. We, as Jesus says this so many times throughout the course, that we light the light in each other, we connect to each other because we are one mind joined. And so in that one mind joined, we dispel the darkness. The darkness is dispelled, and the, you know, all the things that we thought were wrong vanish because they never existed in the first place. And so that, you know, to walk through this world with not being fooled by the illusion about anything or anyone. Thoughts about that, please, Amy?
Yeah, how I feel about that is that as soon as we are looking at someone and not seeing them as a perfect child of God, we're just reinforcing the sickness. If we see the sickness in them, and if everything is a perfect plan of God, then so is their sickness. And by accepting what we see and accepting and seeing God's light and love in them, then we make them perfect and holy because they have the opportunity to see themselves as that. But as soon as we look at them and agree with the illusion of their sickness, then we're reinforcing it both for them and for ourselves. So we're all perfect and holy children of God. And as soon as they can feel that from us, they can accept it too, possibly. And if not, then that is what their classroom is, and it's what's perfect for them at this time. Thanks.
That's beautiful. Thanks.
Yes, I just want to follow up with that, Amy. Thank you, because it is actually an example of today's lesson, which is truth will correct all errors in my mind. And as Dov always talks about trust, and it takes trust to be able to really receive that lesson, because it says, I am God's son, whose self, capital S, which we truly are, rests safely in the mind of God. So no matter what the evidence shows, if I remember that God's son in that being, in that body, which is nothing, rests safely in the mind of God, then that truth will correct all the illusions in my mind. So thank you.
Absolutely excellent. You know, that's really the only way I think that it can be corrected, is for us to allow it through that joining. Anybody else have any thoughts about this?
I do. Line 1, not once do the advanced teachers of God consider the forms of sickness in which their brother believes. Christian science practitioners never ask you about your symptoms. They completely talk about you aligning your mind with the truth and the perfection of God, in which it cannot possibly be any illness.
Yes, that was very well said. Yeah. Because the form of sickness has nothing to do with healing. So as it says, the purpose of all sickness is the same, to think that something outside of you is doing it to you. Whereas when you join with a brother at the level of mind, that's the healing of the belief in separation. So the advanced teacher of God simply joins in oneness with the brother who has come to them, without judging them. In the psychotherapy pamphlet, it says healing begins the instant that judgment stops. Healing begins the instant judgment stops, because it's the judgment that is the belief in separation. What is one can't possibly judge. So when I see myself as one with my brother experiences that oneness, because that is real.
So isn't this the way we're to see our brothers all the time, whether they have a physical symptom or not? So it's not just talking about when their body is sick, it's talking about how we're to behold our brothers at all times.
That's right.
Yeah, because if we're beholding them as a body at all, we are not seeing them as they are. So the sickness isn't just I have a cold or something. The sickness is I believe I'm a body and I'm a separate being from you. And so that's all sickness, is that it may manifest as something with the body, but it may manifest in other ways as well. But it's all that thought that we are separate. So yeah, it's how we should see each other always. And I mean, that's what the whole teaching of A Course in Miracles is about, I believe, is learning to see your brothers as the Christ and see yourself as the Christ and remember God.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. As long as we see ourselves as a body, we see others as a body too. Cannot see others as not a body. It starts with us as not seeing ourselves as a body. Then we're able to see others that there are not bodies. We have to believe that we're not a body first, because I cannot see them and say they're not a body while I still believe I'm a body. By myself seeing myself just as a mind of God, then I'm able to see them as mind only. That's the thing. It starts there first.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. I think it goes, I see you as the Christ, and then I recognize the Christ in me. I recognize the Christ in me, and I can recognize the Christ in you. So I think it's both ways, as long as I think that we're separate beings, that either one of us could be the initiator of the Christ mind and the other. I know it sounds crazy because, it's not true, but I don't know how else to explain it. Anybody else have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I would like to add that it reminds me of what Kenneth Wapnick usually tell us to start. If you cannot see yourself, your brother, as sinlessness, at least start by recognizing what that you see him as separated, because the ego will never do that. The ego will never let you be aware of all your judgment. So if you cannot be without a judgment, at least recognize when you are judging, when you are seeing your brother separated, when you are seeing all the lies, because that means you are already taking a step back and being at least the observer, and then you will be able to choose differently when you can at least see already what the ego is doing. So I think to have this small step, like the Kenneth Wapnick was saying, we were not asked to just jump from where we are to see our brother's sinlessness. Let us start by recognize all the sin that we see in them and in us, and bring them to the Holy Spirit. That's a good step.
Yeah, that's a good step. I think if, the little steps like that are really what get us there. And you're right, we can't just jump into it, because that would just be complete denial of the process. And the process really has to be bringing the darkness to the light and looking at the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And that could be anything, any grievance, anything that comes up in our life. So it's a day by day thing. But that once you're conscious of it, you can pay attention and focus more on that. That's what happens when we do the lessons. We're focusing ourselves on the thing we want to learn, so that we can it can become a habit. So that's it. It becomes a habit. Right now we have, other habits, and some people are much further along than others. I don't really know, but I know I have a lot of bad habits about how I see things, and I have to keep reminding myself every day. This is A Course in Miracles. This is what I'm here for. Any other thoughts on that paragraph, or anything else we've talked about so far?
Yeah, I do. I find it sort of reassuring and reinforcing that it says the truth in their minds, the advanced teachers of God, reaches out to the truth in the minds of their brothers, so that illusions are not reinforced. And then the next sentence, they are thus brought to truth. Truth is not brought to them. So rather than going and saying, oh, you should read the A Course in Miracles and you'll understand, again, it's saying that it's the thoughts in our mind are reaching the thoughts in their mind. We're doing this without having to say anything, just by being there. And it says that so that illusions are not reinforced. And I find that so often when someone's telling us that they're sick or they're having suffering with this or that, we tend to get caught up in that. And that's too bad. Oh, I'll try to fix it with this, or up the story, like, oh, and I know a guy who had it even worse. And it's saying that all of that is reinforcing the illusion of the sickness, and that the only way to get around that, or to stop that strengthening of the illusion of the sickness, is to be at peace ourselves, and to let our thoughts reach out to the other person. And again, just reminding us that we need to be cognizant of what our thoughts are putting out there. And not to get caught up in the gossip or the story or the illusion of how the other person is feeling. Instead, let them get caught up in our mind and our thoughts of God and peace and love, instead of us getting caught up in their story of suffering and pain. And I find that we do that quite often with people who are sick, where we think that we're helping them by sympathizing and trying to offer some solution, when the solution really is just to not see it and not accept their illusion as our own, rather, and also that will then allow them to see the truth by our own truth. Thanks.
Yeah, and we can still empathize with them, as Jesus tells us in True Empathy. We can, but we don't have to go into their the sadness or this upset of the story. We can love them and empathize with them in a way that is still acknowledging the truth of who they are, without feeling sorry for them or thinking that they're a victim, or, like you have cancer or something, you poor thing. But I think it takes some practice to learn how to do that without being, without seeming less than loving, but without buying into the story either.
Sort of the difference between empathizing and sympathizing.
Yes.
I have a friend who appears to have a long-term serious chronic illness. And what really shifted me was realizing that if I saw her as sick, that I was actually attacking her because I was not seeing her as the Christ in her truth.
That's true.
Yeah. I just have one question, maybe, that in order for healing to take place, though, I would have to, if I'm a teacher of God and I see that and I get all these things, but for something to happen, I really need to be connected first with spirit and totally surrendered for whatever the outcome would be, and just like really centered in love and allowing. And then, that would be, I'm thinking that would be the requirement for a true healing, even if it's not a physical thing, but whatever it is that it's going to come out of this. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, to figure out how to be the most loving with the person, and without getting into, if they're close to death or they're really ill, or, getting into feeling sad and sorry, and you can actually deal with them on a real practical basis and the most loving basis. What can I do to help you? Is there, anything that you need? There's so many things that we can do without seeing them as being broken or needy or victims. But the worst thing, the thing that you don't want to do is fall into the trap of weeping. And for some people I know who have been dying with cancer will say, geez, I can hardly wait to get this over with, because I'm so sick of people coming around here crying over things. It's very hard to have any peace when everybody's so sad. That it's not helpful to feel like that about people, and to deal with them that way. So
I feel like we have to trust.
I think
trust and allow, right? Trust and allow God's plan to be the perfect one.
exactly.
I want to share a little.
All right. Does anybody have?
Yeah. Hello?
Go ahead. Yes.
Ken Wapping says, if you're concerned about a brother, you're actually cursing him. That just reiterates what it is that I think either Laurie said or Amy. But basically, if you're concerned about somebody, you are putting a wall between you and them. To see them as yourself, at chapter 8, section 3, a holy relationship. As you see him, you're going to see yourself. As you treat him, you're going to treat yourself. As you think of him, you're going to think of yourself. Leave no brother without giving them salvation, which means to see them as they truly are.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dove. Does anybody else have anything that they want to mention? Or
Well, I'm thinking that more I'm able to do this when somebody's not sick, just in general in everyday life for all my brothers equally, that the easier it'll be if somebody does become sick, because it'll just be my natural, my practice, my seeing them not as bodies, even as healthy bodies.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. It seems to be, that would be a very good practice.
In lesson 187, it's asking you to bless your brother as you bless yourself. So you're either concerned about your brother, which is withholding your blessing, or you're blessing him, which is extending the blessing that's given to you.
Yeah, Dav, can I speak, Lynn?
Yes, please. Hi, Jen.
Dav always taught me, right? You're always speaking about yourself. So what I'm getting out of this course is that I'm only attacking myself. If I start saying, oh, you're sick, you're unstable, I'm really talking about myself, right? And that was actually a mistake I made this week. I said to my friend, you're unstable. And then I remembered Dov. He's like, you're always speaking about yourself. So,
Yes.
so I really said, Jen, shut up.
Cute.
It's funny because what the course does is it makes you see everyone as we're all under God's, like we're with God. Like, why am I attacking you? So I wanted to share my mistake.
Thank you, sweetie.
I'm always speaking about myself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jen. All right. Does anybody else have anything to say before we close out? We'll go on to the next section next week. We'll start on Is Healing Certain? So anything else anybody wants to say before we close out? Or I'm going to actually take off the screen share and let us all see each other. Hi, everybody.
Yes, thank you all. I enjoyed listening to the French version. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Love
you,
you
everyone.
guys. Yeah.
This day.
Karine, do you speak French also?
Yes, I understand French mostly. I don't practice it, so I'm losing it, but I like, yeah, because I'm not practicing. But yeah, from Haiti, they speak French in Haiti. Okay.
So we'll
Thank
have to
you.
do that now. We'll just have to let you guys read it in French.
Oh,
then
no, I
we'll-
don't have it in French. I would not get it in French. I would not be able to get it.
All right, you guys, I love you all. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Tá, só fosse